How are you, buddy?
Yeah, it's been a little,
We'll go ahead and begin. We'd like to thank each and every one of you for coming out this evening. We'll begin with an invocation by Pastor Greg Bears from the Lake Point City Church. Please rise.
Schoolhouse today. Let's go. Would you guys join me in prayer, please? Father in heaven, we thank you so much for this amazing city you've allowed us and blessed us to live in. We ask today, Lord, that you would be with the decisions that are made today by this board of directors, Lord, that it would honor and glorify your name first and foremost, that your will would be done on earth as it is in heaven. And we thank you, Lord, for those board members that have been newly elected. We ask, Lord, that you would give the board wisdom and discernment as they make decisions. And again, Lord, our heart's desire is that we would make an impact and a difference in this city that would honor and glorify you and lift high the name of Jesus. We ask, Lord God, that your will be done and that you just have your hand in this meeting. And Lord, we pray that the Resource Center would be exactly what you created it to be, to help and to love people that need your love. Father, we thank you for this great city. We thank you for our leadership, and we ask that you would bless them and keep them in the name of Jesus. And all God's people said, Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
Director Aaron Holliday. Here. Director Phyllis Beard.
Present.
Director Marcia Dobbs-Smith.
Here.
Director Dudley Webb.
Here.
Director Karen Garcia.
Here.
Director Steve Trusty.
Here.
Mayor Pat McCabe.
Here. At this time, we'll consider approval of the agenda. Are there any additions, deletions to the agenda, or items to be moved from the consent agenda to new business?
Move to
Director
approve those
Garcia.
presented.
Second. We got a motion to approve, seconded by Director Trustee. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Agenda is approved. This time we'll consider approval of the minutes of the regularly held meeting on November 5th, 2024. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve. Director Webb,
Second.
seconded by Director Garcia. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Recognition of guests. We have a couple items under recognition of guests, and I'd like to call Kim Walters up to the podium and her family. And I asked Director Garcia to read a very special proclamation, Zebra Cake Day for Childhood Cancer.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'm just looking for that proclamation. Thank you, Director. Zebra Cake Day for Childhood Cancer Awareness. Whereas childhood cancer rates have been rising for the past few decades, around 9,620 children in the United States under the age of 15 will be diagnosed with cancer in 2024. And 1 in 6 children with cancer in America do not survive 5 years. And whereas every 3 minutes a child is diagnosed with cancer, and only about 4% of all federal funding for cancer research goes towards childhood cancer research. And whereas the Savannah Walters Memorial Foundation, established June 2nd, 2022, is a realization of the dream of the late Savannah Savvy Cassandra Walters by her family and friends to bring awareness to childhood cancer, help cancer families financially, and contribute to childhood cancer research. And whereas Savannah was a typical teenager, a senior in high school, when she was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's anaplastic large cell lymphoma. She was told she could not return to school, but she persevered. Savannah made it to her senior prom, the senior's last day, and the senior parade. She walked across the graduation stage with her head held high, Savannah endured several rounds of treatment and a bone marrow transplant and almost won her fight against cancer 2 times. After 11 months of being a true warrior, Savannah passed away on November 30th, 2019. And whereas while battling cancer, Savannah's family would bribe her with zebra cakes to help her through the treatments, and a zebra cake was her last meal. On November 11th, before she had to be intubated for the last time, to honor her and raise awareness about childhood cancer, her family encouraged everyone on Facebook to join them in the Zebra Cake Day on November 11th, 2020. The day was a success, with hundreds joining in to show their support. And now, therefore, Pat McCabe, the mayor of the city of Hot Springs, and on behalf of the entire board of directors, does proclaim November 11th, 2024 as Zebra Cake Day in Hot Springs in Arkansas, and invites all residents to enjoy a zebra cake on this day and support the Savannah Walters Memorial Foundation's mission of helping cancer families financially, raising awareness, and contributing to childhood cancer research.
We want to thank you, the City of Hot Springs, for your continued support with childhood cancer awareness. In 2024, we lost 2 young children to cancer, and another child was diagnosed, and those are just the children we know about. The Savannah Walters Memorial Foundation will continue to help children with cancer and their families, along with spreading awareness. We can only do that with your help. And Zebra Cake this year was a huge success. We gave away over 1,700 zebra cakes. We thank you all very much.
Thank you. We have a proclamation declaring the results of the 2024 municipal election. Whereas on November 5th, 2024, a general municipal election was held in the city of Hot Springs, Arkansas, to elect the following 3 municipal officers: City Director District 1, City Director District 3, City Director District 6. And whereas on November 19th, 2024, the Garland County Election Commission certified to the mayor and the city clerk the results of the November 5th, 2024 general election. Now therefore, I, Pat McCabe, Mayor of the City of Hot Springs, Arkansas, do hereby proclaim that the general election held on November 5th, 2024 in the city of Hot Springs, Arkansas, the following votes were cast for directors on the Hot Springs Board of Directors. District 1, Mark Toth, 550 votes. Director Aaron Holliday, 627 votes. Chris Ricks, 439 votes. Total of all votes, 1616. Within District 3, Marcia Dobbs Smith, unopposed and deemed elected in the manner as if having appeared on the ballot. District 6, Director Steve Trusty, unopposed and deemed elected in the manner as if having appeared on the ballot. A witness whereof I hereunto have set my hand and cause the seal of the city to be affixed hereto on this 19th day of November 2024. So let's congratulate our directors for their return to office. We all look forward to working with you again. At this time, I'd call upon the city manager for the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. Before I move into my report, I'd like to ask our finance director, Karen Scott, to proceed to present the quarterly financial report to the board.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Directors. This will be a summary of the major funds as of September 30th, and remember, these are unaudited numbers. The 2024 general fund year-to-date revenues over expenditures is $5.875 million. That is lower than last year, but several things look a little odd in the general fund. If you'll remember, we had that transfer of the ARPA funds of $6.74 million that make things look funny. In other words, we transferred money to offset salaries. So in 2024, all of the budgets have higher salary expenditures as compared to 2023. A couple of highlights. Revenues are up 2% over last year. Sales taxes was, as of September 30th, up 2.18%. Oaklawn was up 9.34%. Interest revenues were up 97.81%. Franchise fees, however, were down 25%, but it is a timing issue. We got several franchise fee checks last year in September, and we did not receive them until October this year. So again, that makes things look a little odd. Also, STR business licenses were down. Again, that's a timing issue. When I looked at the October receipts, they're really coming in pretty healthy. The unrestricted fund balance in the general fund is $25.76 million, and the restricted fund balance is $11.23. In the street fund, the 2024 year-to-date revenues over expenditures is $2.14 million. It's down from last year. Last year, we were at $5.53 million, but expenditures are up by over $3 million, and that is all a result of a really intense effort in our paving program. The unrestricted fund balance in the street fund is $16.8 million, and the restricted fund balance is $1.76 million. In the water fund, the 2024 year-to-date revenues over expenditures is $3.96 million, just down slightly from last year. A little over 50,000, and that's a result of expenses higher for salaries. As you know, we instituted the salary compensation plan in 2024. The fund balance in water fund is $79.74 million. The wastewater fund in the 2024 year-to-date revenues or expenditures is $2.55 million, up slightly over last year. That is because revenues are up $1.5 million, while expenses are up $590,000. But our difference this year is right at $1 million, again, the difference between increases in revenues and expenditures. And the fund balance in the wastewater fund is $55.45 million. In the solid waste fund, the year-to-date revenues over expenditures is $351,999. Last year, that was $227,500, so we were up a little over $120,000. Revenues are up slightly, $355,000. Expenditures also up $231,000. And the solid waste fund has a fund balance of $8.297 million. That concludes my report. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Karen? Hearing none. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I'd like to remind all that the city offices, except public safety and airport, will be closed in observance of the Thanksgiving holiday on Thursday, November 28th and Friday, November 29th. There'll be no solid waste service operating on Thursday. However, residential collections and Earth Angel recycling, including leaf and mulch collection, they'll run one day behind schedule, so they won't be running Thursday. They'll run Thursday route on Friday and Friday's route on Saturday. The transfer station will be closed both Thursday and Friday, as well as Transportation Depot. The intercity transit bus and paratransit services will not run Thursday, but they will resume on Friday. You can get all this information on our website as well. The compost facility will be closed Thursday and Friday. The facility will reopen at 8 a.m. until 2 p.m. on Saturday, November 30th. Garland County District Court will also be closed on both Thursday and Friday. I would like to welcome a new hire, Austin Netterville, hired as our traffic signal technician for the traffic division. We also had a couple of promotions since the last time we've met. Don Sweet Dobbs promoted to Planning and Development Planner 3, a very well-deserved promotion there. as well as Kaylin Stalkup, promoted to our Hot Springs Police Department crime scene technician. Want to congratulate both of them on their promotions. Airport lineman Andre Jones retired on November the 14th after 28 years of service. Lance and I were able to attend his little retirement party out there, and I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of stories about those guys that have been here 28 years, and I can tell you just from everyone that showed up, from those that he worked with, as well as those that were not employed with the city, that are just customers of our airport. They had a lot of love for this employee, and we just certainly wish Andre all the best in the future. I know that he's somewhere having a pretty good time right now. He said he's waiting until he got his retention check and he was out of here. But he was well loved out there, so we're gonna miss Andre. Kenneth Adele Memorial Park is closed for maintenance. We'll reopen that on November the 25th, right before we have the lighting of the Christmas decorations, which leads me into the next segment. At the end of the Tom Daniel Holiday Chili Cook-Off event held at the Exchange Street Parking Plaza. That starts at 4:30. Get there early. There's always a pretty good line for that particular event. But at the end of that, we'll light the Christmas lights in our downtown area. This year, Parks and Trail staff have decorated downtown Hot Springs with more than 1 million holiday lights that will be on display from all the way until January the 1st. And I can tell you that they have been working on that for a couple of months. It's a lot of hard work from a lot of individuals, and it really, really makes our city look really, really good. So I appreciate all of the work that they do there. They'll also be going through their tradition that they've had for our Christmas memories. The department will be hosting its annual Christmas memories on Friday, December the 6th from 6 to 8 down at Kenneth Adair Memorial Park. Come hang ornaments on 5 memorial trees in memory of loved ones who have passed or in honor of loved ones who are on active military duty who can't be home for the holidays. The department will have a limited number of available ornaments to distribute. You're welcome to bring your own as well. But that's always been something that's been really neat to watch as those days go by and you start seeing more and more ornaments start showing up on those trees. Heritage and Historic Preservation Plan public meeting. Hot Springs Planning and Development Department is hosting 2 public meetings to discuss heritage and historic preservation plans. The first meeting will be 2:30 p.m. December 10th at Garland County Library, and the second meeting will be at 6 p.m. December 10th at the Transportation Depot. A little update on paving. We were about 62% complete with our paving for 2024. The last update, we had Alta Vista, Creek, Daffodil, Horseshoe Point, Hickory, Highland, Orange, and Olive Streets. They're moving into the Illinois Idlewood area in the Hobson Avenue area for milling, and we're continuing to try to get to that 100% before the cold weather or the rain prevents us from being able to do that. They've got 2 milling crews here and 2 paving crews, so they're making some pretty good headway. Fire department continues with training. Over this past week, they've had Task Force 1 Incorporated, which is a premier emergency services training and consulting organization. Firefighters have been enhancing skills with advanced training in searching techniques, forcible entry, thermal imaging, and more. These sessions ensure our firefighters are better prepared and to serve and protect our community. I can tell you we've got more training going on in that department than I think we ever have, whether it's our live fire at the airport or this particular Task Force 1, and appreciate what they're doing out there. On a little more sad note, recently Hot Springs Parks and Trails Velocity Park restrooms and various items in Adair as well as Hill Wheatley Park have been vandalized. We've got automated locks on that new bathroom that we put at Velocity Park. It's been beat off and all the wires taken out of it, tore up some of the inside of the bathrooms. We've got Adair Park that's had some wires cut and some of the displays that were taken down. Hill Wheatley Plaza, we had someone go through and cut all of the cords in that area. I can remember last year, maybe the year before, the 100 block of Central had the same thing where somebody came in and just cut all the Christmas lights as they went. If anyone sees any of that type of activity, we implore you to call the police department. We've got some camera footage on a couple of them, but We need to all be diligent in trying to prevent those things from happening. Together, we can protect and preserve our parks for all to enjoy, and just thank you for the support. Mayor, that completes my report.
Very good, thank you. This time we'll hear from individual directors on upcoming events. Director Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to first wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving, because next Thursday on the 28th will be Thanksgiving. And all across Hot Springs, people want to help others. And there are a number of locations that are providing free Thanksgiving Day dinners. And our own farmers market down here on Orange Street, we have nonprofits that will be providing free lunches to anyone that comes out to the farmers market between 11 and 2. The Roanoke Baptist Church, the Lake Point City Church, and J.M. Langston Lodge also will be serving from 10 a.m. till noon. And the giving team will be providing free Thanksgiving meals also. And I believe Denise is here this evening, and if she will be available to answer any questions, or if you need information, you can text her at 501-485-4674. And we're thankful for all of the organizations that are looking out for those that may not have a place to go or may not have funds for a meal, but care about everybody in our community. Thank you.
Director Trustee.
Thank you, Mayor. I know City Manager Burrow mentioned it, but since Mr. Daniel occupied this seat many years, I wanted to remind everyone about the Tom Daniel Holiday Chili Cook-Off. It's the 25th at 4:30 in Exchange Street Parking Plaza. That's just a good kickoff for the holiday season. We'll have Hot Springs businesses will compete to see who can cook up the best chili in town, and we'll also, as he said, turn the switch on to light up the downtown Christmas lights. The entrance for that is $10 for adults, $5 for kids ages 10 and under. And I had the pleasure of working with Tom and Mary for many, many years in the banking field. And of course, I knew Tom from Rotary for probably 25 years. And Tom was always a very generous and giving man. And I think it's only very fitting that we honor his memory in this way. So November 25th, 4:30 p.m.
Director Webb.
Thank you, Mayor. As good as it is to fellowship and eat lots of great food at Thanksgiving, it is also great to exercise and stay in good shape. So I want to bring to your attention the Ken Freeman Huff Puff and Stuff 5K. You can do that Thanksgiving morning, just before you start feasting on some good food and fellowship. That is Thanksgiving Day at 8 o'clock a.m. at 100 Broadway Terrace. There are a few spots available in the Ken Freeman Huff Puff and Stuff 5K. Earn that Thanksgiving Day stuffing by bringing the whole family and all of your friends out to participate in the Thanksgiving Morning Turkey Trot 5K in scenic and historic Hot Springs National Park, Arkansas. The race takes place on the Hot Springs Greenway, starting and ending at the Transportation Depot. All participants will receive a long-sleeve tech shirt and a finisher's medal. Proceeds benefit Hot Springs Friends of the Parks, specifically for expanding the multi-use trail system in Hot Springs. For more information and to register, visit runsignup.com. Thank you.
Very good. Other announcements of upcoming events? Director Holliday.
Thank you. I'm going to share a couple things going on at our library. From now until November 30th, they're hosting the Mr. Rogers Neighborhood Sweater Drive. So at the library, they're participating in the annual Mr. Rogers Sweater Drive, where you can donate new or gently used sweaters until the end of November at the library at 1427 Malvern. The donations help local organizations like Spa Area, Independent Living Services, Jackson House, Harbor House, and more. So please think about that. I think we all have more sweaters than we need in our closets and can share those. Also on November 21st, the library is hosting Stories in the Park, which will be at Entergy Park, 530 Lake Park Drive. That'll be at 10:30 a.m. They'll have snacks, stories, and some dance-along songs, starting, like I said, at 10:30. The program is geared towards kids aged 10 and under, and for more information about either of these things, go to their website, which is gclibrary.com.
Any other announcements? I'm going to go a little bit out of step here. Miss Sally Carter, will you come to the podium, please? You made a post the other day. This is under the category of upcoming events. And you put a post on Facebook about kind of a feeding program or a Donate Your Deer program. Will you explain that?
Yes,
Because
sir.
it's deer season right now, and I
It
got a
is.
report earlier today from Director Webb that there's no deer, but, or,
There's deer everywhere. They just may not be really big. But you know, each one of us that buys a hunting license and gets out there and hunts, we have 5 tags, 2 buck tags and 3 doe tags. And I know there are a lot of us that don't like to kill those does, but folks, we need to kill those because that makes more food for the rest of them throughout the year. I have a very generous couple who has volunteered to pay for the processing of 10 deer out at Black's Meat Processing Shop, and those deer will go to Lake Hamilton schools. And that is a great thing. If you have filled your freezer, please, please donate a deer. You get 20 to 25 pounds of ground meat from each deer. And man, does that feed a lot of families. There are over 300 kids at Lake Hamilton schools, I found out this week, that take backpack food home with them on the weekends just to make it through. Ronnie Ritter is a good friend, and he handles all of the Hunters Feeding the Hungry. He helped sponsor this program. And I'll tell you something else. For those of you that just have endless money, go ahead and take a deer, get it processed, ground up, pay for that, take it to the Hope Food Bank, and they will give you a tax write-off on that. But they don't have to charge for that, and that feeds a lot of families. So help us. Let's feed our kids and our families.
very good. Thank you. Any other announcements of upcoming events? Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of items that are fairly routine in nature that do not merit individual discussion. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Director Garcia, seconded by Director Trustee. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Consent agenda is adopted. Moving on to new business, we'll consider Resolution R-24-2011. I ask City Attorney to read by title.
Resolution R-24-211, a resolution declaring a certain structure located at 120 Boaz Street a nuisance and condemning same pursuant to Title 17 of the Hot Springs Code. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would entertain a motion second to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Director Trustee, second by Director Webb, and this is definitely not Kathy Selman at the microphone, but
No, sir.
Mike Scott, Chief Building Official, for the report, staff report.
Thank you, sir. The City of Hot Springs proposes condemnation for the purpose of demolishing and clearing a vacant structure at 120 Boaz Street. This is a single-family dwelling that sustained significant damage due to a fire on April 1st of this year. This property is owned by Mr. Willie Brown. Mr. Brown purchased the property from the previous owner in 2020, and he was residing at the address when the fire occurred. Mr. Brown obtained a demolition permit on July 19th and began removing the structure. However, on September 19th, he requested the city raise and remove the structure. He has filed the necessary consent for demolition form with the Planning Department, which authorizes the city to raise and remove the structure. He is also aware that this action by the city will result in a lien for the cost of the demolition filed with the Circuit Clerk of Garland County. Therefore, having inspected the structure and based on the requirements set forth in the Arkansas Fire Prevention Code, as well as the Hot Springs Property Maintenance Code, the structure was deemed unsafe for habitation because of extensive structural damage caused by the fire. Due to the inability of the property owner to make the repairs to stabilize, his subsequent request to have the city remove the structure, and having no reasonable alternative, we are recommending that the structure should be raised and removed. The taxes are current on this property and it is in District 2.
Any questions of Mike on this item? Thank you. Did we have anybody sign up?
No, sir.
Any discussion amongst directors? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Director Holliday. Aye. Beard.
Aye.
Dobbs Smith.
Aye.
Webb.
Aye.
Garcia. Garcia.
Hear the pitter patter.
Director Garcia.
Yes.
Good enough.
Yes.
Is that an affirmative vote?
Yes. Aye.
Trustee.
Aye.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Resolution is adopted and with about 12 yeses. You had about 4 or 5 of them. Okay, we're moving on to Resolution R-24-212 and ask City Attorney to read by title.
Resolution R-24-, I think is this 201? Was this removed previously? It states 201 in the packet.
It should be 201.
Okay. Resolution R-24-201, a resolution adopting a budget for the City of Hot Springs, Arkansas for the year 2025 and for other purposes. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would entertain a motion to second to adopt.
So moved. Director
Second.
Trustee, second by Director Garcia. And Mr. Burrow will provide the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. Arkansas Code annotated 1447-126 states that the city manager shall prepare the municipal budget annually and submit to the board for its approval or disapproval and be responsible for its administration after adoption. The city manager has submitted a proposed budget to the Hot Springs Board of Directors for its consideration. Arkansas Code annotated 1447-125 provides further that the governing body of the city shall each year adopt a budget for the operation of the city. It is the opinion of city staff that the schedules and exhibits of financial information which are attached to this proposed resolution indicate predicted revenues and expenditures which may be anticipated by the city of Hot Springs during the upcoming calendar year, and that they are as accurate as possible for budgetary purposes. The proposed resolution adopts the 2025 budget at the major expense category level by fund in accordance with our financial policies. The budget document further sets the staffing levels for all full-time and part-time positions in the authorized table of personnel. It is my pleasure to present the 2025 budget for the City of Hot Springs. This budget is balanced and has been prepared in accordance with Arkansas budget law and applicable local ordinances. The 2025 total budget is $169.59 million. The budget is specifically designed to align with the Board of Directors' visions and priorities for the City of Hot Springs. This message provides an executive summary of the budget and is divided into 3 sections. The first section is a discussion of budget objectives and an overview of significant changes from the prior year. The second section provides an overview of the city's major funds and includes summaries of revenues, expenses, and major programs. Finally, the closing section includes a discussion of budget development and fiscal strategies. The primary objective of this budget is to advance the board's current vision and priorities for the City of Hot Springs, which were set at the board retreat held on August 3rd, 2024, and provide basic and essential services through sustained departmental operations. The board's priorities for 2025 are: 1, continue aligning current codes with the 2040 Comprehensive Plan for Hot Springs, specifically the future land use map, street classification tables, and sign and landscape standards. 2, complete the design and implement the work as scheduled on the Gulfa Basin wastewater project to meet the requirements of the consent administrative order from ADEQ for 2025 and 2030. 3, implement components of an affordable housing strategic plan. 4, develop program for a fully operational community resource center to include congregate feeding program, operational warming and cooling shelter, develop policies and procedures, case management programs and partnership agreements. 5, complete Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the environmental study, hire a contractor for asbestos abatement, let an RFP for demolition to the old hospital campus. 6, complete purchase and renovations of property for the storage of records and Christmas decorations, as well as staff relocations. 7 is develop sports recreation master plan, and 8, complete the construction of the 7 South Fire Station. Other new and ongoing major projects that will continue into 2025 are working with Garland County for a senior citizen center, continuation of the Washita Water Supply Project, potential uses of the Majestic site, further street paving and roadway improvements, continue improvements of the Malvern Gateway, and an additional solar energy project. The $169.59 million per 2025 proposed budget is $7 million less than the 2024 amended budget. However, is about $4 million more than the adopted 2024 budget. Specific initiatives for each fund will be discussed as the information that the fund is presented. Other factors that impact the 2025 budget are 3% projected increase in sales tax revenues, a 6% increase in Oaklawn revenues, and increases in water, wastewater, and solid waste billing rates in accordance with the rate ordinances previously adopted. The total 2025 general fund revenue is $38.7 million. The majority of revenue is from the 1 cent sales tax. Sales tax revenue increased 7.07% in 19, 4.91% in 2020, 14.62% in 2021, 7.4% in 2022, 6.13% in 23, and as of September 30th, 2024, has increased 2.18%. We know that after the last month, we're just about even for the year in our percentage. It's very sporadic on our sales taxes from year to year. We based our projections for the 2025 budget on a 3% increase. Sales tax growth, and has been extremely, as I said, erratic, but I think we can hit that 3%. We also are budgeting a 6% growth in Oaklawn revenues. Those are currently up about 10.66%. Other revenues expected to increase are administrative fees, alcohol permits and taxes, and occupation licenses. Loan proceeds are a function of the amount of capital to be financed. So as I mentioned, the general fund revenue is $38.7 million. The total expenditure budget for the general fund is $38.29 million, which has a surplus of $428,621 at year end. District court funds. There are 3 district court funds. The majority of these costs are split 50-50 with Garland County. The city will contribute approximately $764,000 for the operation of district court in 2025. The total 2025 expenditure budget for these funds is $1.51 million. The 2025 police revenue budget is $18.83 million. The amount of the subsidy from the general fund is about $10.4 million. As you know, transfers from the general fund, that's our biggest expense, and it's typically transfers over to police and fire. The expenditures for the police department is $18.83 million. The 2025 revenue budget is $14.52 million for fire. Same the expenditure budget. However, the general fund is expected to have a subsidy of about $7.1 million in the fire budget. Jail maintenance tax fund. The jail maintenance tax fund accounts for 3/8 tax paid to Garland County for prisoner housing. It is estimated this tax will produce just a little over $4 million in 2025. All of that will be returned to Garland County to pay for the prisoner housing. The street funds, street highway tax, and our roads now funds, the 2025 expenditure budget for these is $11 million. The The majority of expenditures for this fund are services and supplies. One of the priorities for 2021 was an increased focus on street paving. And going back over the last few years, the street paving budget was doubled to $1.65 million in 2021 and 2022. It was raised to $4.6 million in 2023. And with Our Roads Now, we are able to bring in $6.6 million in 2024, and we have $6.32 million budgeted for 2025. As always, this fund also includes the cost of operating the streetlights. Our streetlights are typically somewhere around $550,000 annually. Intercity Transit. This Intercity Transit Fund is balanced without any projected revenue or expenditures, with projected revenue and expenditures of $1.9 million. This is heavily subsidized by the federal government, as well as some of the state and the general fund. The federal grant for this particular fund is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $991,000 in 2025. General fund subsidy to intercity transit is $651,000. The parking fund, the parking fees will produce around $1.2 million is what we're estimating in 2025 on an expense budget of about $654,000. That will change once we start moving down and starting having the surplus and being able to pass a revenue bond to build a new parking deck in the future. Stormwater Fund, the revenue budget for 2025 is $1.67 million on an expense budget of $1.34. The Airport Fund has a revenue budget of $3.54 million on an expenditure budget of $4.8. Depreciation is really what impacts the difference in the revenue and the expenses of the airport fund. And really, it also, the other big factor is fuel. If we buy more fuel, we sell more fuel. If we're not selling as much fuel, we don't buy as much fuel. So those things kind of wash out from a revenue and expense standpoint. However, depreciation is a significant portion of airport expense. The potential deficit is an accounting element, which occurs when grant revenue is recognized in the year that we receive it. However, the projects are depreciated and the associated assets are depreciated over the life of the asset. It's a non-cash flow item, so does not require any type of current resources. Solid waste is one that's going to have a deficit budget for 2025. Their revenue budget is $9.56 million on an expense budget of $10.45 million. That's due to a big, heavy capital outlay in 2025. Those fluctuate from year to year. This year, they've got about $2.3 million, I think, in capital. That $887,000 in the deficit, that's easily covered by that particular fund balance for solid waste. And we'll see that ebb and flow. I think this past year we also had a deficit budget, but it looks like it's actually going to come in with a surplus. And I've said this many times to this board over the years. We budget for the worst, but we perform to the best. So what we see in these budgetary numbers, we typically outperform those each and every year, and I don't see 2025 being any different. Water, the 2025 revenue budget is $25.67 million, and the expense budget is $24.95, bringing in a slight surplus into the water fund. Wastewater also has a surplus. Their revenue budget is $24.2 million on an expense of $24.02. Though we do see a surplus coming for wastewater as well, it is one of those funds, though, that we really have to watch the cash flow and the cash balance. So a lot of the things that we'll be purchasing in wastewater will probably be towards the latter part of the year as we see some of that cash flow coming in and being able to take care of the things that the capital needs that they're going to need. But that one is one that has a tight cash flow just about each and every year. Employee Wellness Fund, a fund balance of $10 million is anticipated at the end of 2024. It's a really good reserve for future years. I can tell you this is one of the funds where I can remember the general fund having to subsidize the wellness fund. It was losing about $2 million a year. We made changes back during that time, right around 2016, and we've been able to slowly but surely develop a good reserve in that account. And like I said, at the end of '24, we think it's going to be around $10 million. In 2025, we have $4.54 million budgeted for revenue on an expense of $5.26 million. This is due to the health fund balance being so high. The board has elected to continue to reduce the premium expense to the city departments for 2 months during 2025 in the form of a premium holiday. We did that in 2024, and it is also in the 2025 budget. The fleet fund has about $1.2 million in its expenditure budgets. Those wash out at the end of the year. All of their charges for fleet are based on the departments that use them, and they're charged back to those individual departments. That is similar to utility admin. Utility admin covers things like all of the meters, meter maintenance, utility billing. On that, utility billing also bills stormwater and solid waste, and each one of those departments are billed back for utility admin in the amount of use that they had for that particular department. So that's always a wash. It zeroes out at the end of the year. The development of the city's budget takes several months and hundreds of hours of staff time. For this year, each department was instructed to develop a conservative budget focused on the board's objectives. The budget also includes cost of living increases as well as step increases for our employees. Once the departments had completed their budget, meetings were held with the city manager, deputy city manager, finance director, and human resources director, and we reviewed each budget, every line item in every budget. After review and changes were made by this group, the budget was reviewed by the city manager for further adjustments and then a recommendation to the board of directors. The City of Hot Springs budget is balanced and fiscally responsible for the service demands currently experienced by the city. I do want to say that, as you are all aware, as we go through that process and I get that budget to a point to where we're going to present that to the board, we have the board's work session. We spent a little over 4 hours going through the budgets at the fire department. And there were several suggestions that came out of those meetings, and I want the board to know that each one of those I was able to get those into the budget and still have that 400,000 plus surplus. Those things that were added was a $25,000 contingency for the splash pad at David F. Watkins Park, about $35,000 in water usage that we anticipate. Wade Street Park, we added $20,000 there at Wade Street, which we have about $50,000 in improvements happening in 2024 as well. We have 3 pieces of software that will help us better communicate with our residents in different departments. Replica is one that's about $18,000, and that's going to help us as we look for some of these larger federal grants in usage on places like our Greenway, different trails, Northwoods. All of those areas are able to capture this activity. It really monitors cell phone usage. It can pick up anytime you have notifications on, it's going to click, and it'll tell you how many phones basically were on that particular field or on that particular trail. But those things are things that we need because we don't have any historical data when we go for some of the larger grants on the federal side. And Sarah Delosier is absolutely doing a fantastic job, our new grant writer. We're having a hard time keeping up with her, but that's okay. Let her go. She has already got, I can't tell you how many grants identified, and she's doing a great job. But we need Replica to help us kind of track that information, so we'll have something substantive that we can put in with those grants. Kimry Soccer lights for Kimry Soccer is in the budget at $190,000. There will be some things we'll need to do with FAA on that to make sure they're just shielded if we get to that point. Wash tower allocation for Hot Springs Village. As I mentioned to the board, we're in a position to be able to purchase the water storage in Lake Washita from Hot Springs Village. They've approached us. They've got 2 million gallons of storage. It's impossible for them to be able to build an intake site and lines for that small of amount. The rate for that water would be astronomical. They've offered to sell that to us for what they pay annually in the maintenance fees that we pay the Corps, It's a little over 42,000, about 42,500. We would pay that to them for the initial year, and then we'll have a maintenance cost of 42.5 in future years. But all of that is included in the budget that I just mentioned. In some cases, in very few, I think we only had 2 departments that required any type of fund balance from prior year. As you know, I mean, we had several years where we had a deficit budget in general fund, but over the past several years, we have not had to do that. That was the same in '24, and that is the same in '25. It is a surplus budget without deficit. The required general fund balance per board policy is 16.5% of our annual operating expense. This equates to about $6.32 million for the 2025 budget. The estimated ending fund balance for 2025 is $40.37 million. A portion of this is reserved, which will be expended through several major projects throughout the year. But we are well above the board's. We're well above the board's threshold of what you've set for yourself. Thank you, Mayor. There are still priorities that remain unfunded, and staff will continue to explore new ways of meeting these funding requirements. Overall, the 2025 budget is based on sound fiscal decisions and provides the necessary funding for many of the board's priorities. I want to thank the department heads and all the dozens of city staff who helped in the preparation, analysis, and presentation of this particular docket. Budget. This is one of the largest documents that we bring to the board every year. It truly defines where we're going in 2025. Be glad to answer any questions. There is additional information for anyone in the public. This has been out there for about 3 weeks. You're able to go out there, take a look at each department's budget. The full budget message, I didn't go through the entire message, but the board has it. It's in your packet. It's online. We encourage the public to go out and take a look at that. It's got a lot of good information in it. Mayor, that concludes that item. I'm glad to answer questions.
Any questions of Mr. Burrow from the board? I know we have a number of people who have signed up. But any questions of Bill? Hearing none, we'll move on with those who have signed up to speak on this matter. And as our general rule, we allow 3 minutes for each individual to come forward and provide us their input. I do ask that we all come with varied opinions and we just like to hear directly from those who are presenting to us, and please hold your applause, or certainly no heckling and things along that line, and we appreciate the input that we'll receive tonight. We'll begin with Ms. Pat King. Ms. King, please come forward and restate your name, address, and district, please, and tell us your thoughts.
Older than I used to be. Pat King, District 1 on Glade Street. First, I would like to I talked to several members of the board last 2 weeks ago because the budget was being discussed on election night, and in one of the most consequential elections in our history, and I thought that was inappropriate. I spoke to several of the board members. Evidently, they spoke to other members, and I would like to thank them and the ones that cooperated and postponed the budget hearing till tonight. However, in the process of this, I discovered that the budget always is done on the first Monday in November, or the first Tuesday in November, which in 6 out of 7 years is an election day. And I would beg that the board consider to start the hearing at least in the first meeting in October, to give the public more of a chance to study and comment on the budget. And the reason I say back that far is because so many times the board has a habit of saying, we're not going to go for 3 readings, we're going to go for 1 because it's an emergency. And I don't know, when I was growing up, my mama told me if everything's an emergency, nothing's an emergency. And when I worked at the Navy, everything being an emergency was a result of P blank, 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 poor planning. So I would beg that you give the public more of an opportunity to comment Sometimes they'll hear something that somebody else said, have to go think about it and come back. And I think we ought to go back to the practice of 3 readings for everything. I was here last year on the shelter issue, speaking against it. A whole host of people came after me, and everybody wanted this wonderful shelter. But when it got set up, nobody wanted to run it. Now that, to me, says everybody wants the credit for something, nobody actually wants to do the work. Now we're looking at spending $100,000 to bring in someone from the other end of the state to run it, and I don't know just how much has really done looking for someone. I can't imagine no one in this city is willing to take that job for $100,000. And I would beg that you look a little harder and consider a little harder. Thank you, and God bless y'all.
Any board members have any questions for Ms. King? Thank you. Ms. Janie Smith? Ms. Smith? Please come forward and restate your name, address, and district, please.
Janie Smith, 705 Malvern, District 3. Good evening, and thank you, Mayor and Board, for letting me speak. Those that know me know that my focus has been for my entire career to help the disadvantaged, whether they're mentally or physically disabled, mentally ill, seniors, poverty-stricken, and the homeless. I've been with Jackson House the last 25 years. My dad, some of y'all knew him. He started that as a non-denominational, privately run facility. For nearly 50 years, we have done that without any state or federal funding, strictly local support. And we support and assist about 20,000 local residents every year, which runs about with where our poverty level is. I'm trying to make this shorter than I originally, so excuse me for. I've been a supporter of the homeless initiative, at least for the weather relief issues. I know that a lot of other entities, many of which are duplication of services, but they do serve things such as mental health, substance abuse, etc. The homeless population has increased, and I know that we've seen that. We see that on the corners. We see that. I personally notice it. I look for it, and I see a lot of people walking with backpacks and so forth. It doesn't matter what part of town I'm in. I see that. So I feel like this has become a necessity. I think a lot of cities are seeing that. But I'd also like to ask you to keep in mind that when you build a great place to come to, people will come. So before long, you will be serving people who are not our locals, but there'll be people that are coming here because it looks so good, thanks to social media, Facebook. And I just ask that we temper what we do with a little bit of common sense, I think. I know that at Jackson House Friday, we had a new person that came to Arkansas and to Hot Springs from Oklahoma because they got word that we had a great program here. And today we had 2 that came from Little Rock that saw on social media that we have a great program, and they came here to see us, to stay here. So it's a little bit concerning, and I've been in this, I'm for this, you know that I am. Those of you that know me know that that's what I've always done and what I believe in. But I just want you to temper local. The support is local, the taxes are local, and we need to be aware that we don't need to be a bright beacon to the rest of the world. I know that we want to be for water, but we don't need to be for homelessness. I don't want to turn that into something like LA or one of these other big cities that really have problems. And of all things, people from Little Rock has 10 times better services than we do. But now we have people here today that their car broke down, they have no gas, no food, and they're not going to leave. So that's just something I wanted to bring to your attention. I want to let you know I'm for it. I'm not against anything. I just think that we need to be cognizant of what's really going on. And this is our community. I don't want to see a bunch of folks coming in. We're going to have to figure out a way to how to deal with that. That needs to be part of our planning, I think.
Yeah, Ms. Smith, can you provide a closing statement, please?
Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you very much. I'm always open to discussions if anybody needs information.
Thank you. Any
Thank you.
questions of Ms. Smith?
I have one.
Director Gobsmith?
Both speakers who have spoken about this, our facility, keep referring to homeless. I thought this was supposed to be a resource center. How do you foresee families with children and abuse situations cohabiting, being in the same building with the homeless? Because I know that the man that we're hiring is a homeless director, but this is supposed to be a resource center for all.
I have not been included in all of that planning, so I don't have all of those answers. I will say that there will have to be a lot of things adopted as far as screening participants that want to come in. They're going to have to be screened. They're going to have to be separation of services. Especially if it's going to be shelter or day programs or that sort of thing, you're going to have to make sure that safety is of a concern. Just like the school system where you have to go in and use your thumb to pick up your own kid. It can be something as simple as that. But yeah, there will have to be a lot of planning and forethought that goes into that before those types of things are open.
Thank you.
I think that's a little further into the phases. I think the first phase is just a warming and cooling shelter.
And Director Webb?
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Smith, you mentioned something about making sure that everybody this resource center would provide services to are local. If a majority of those who receive services are homeless, how do you propose to determine where their origin is?
That's a good question.
They're going to be probably without any ID.
That's where you have to do the identification process. It's going to have to be done that way. I know that in our facility, we open at least 100 new cases a month, and we have ever since the hurricanes, 12 or 13 years ago. So a case can be a person, or it can be up to, I think my biggest family is 10. So we're doing that every month consistently for years and years and years. So what we do is we limit what we offer to people who have not been here at least 6 months. It's not that we refuse to give them, we take care of very basic needs like food and some things like that, but we don't just open all of our services to someone unless they've become a permanent resident. And it's only at that point that we open up our services. We keep records, we have deep interviews. That's how we gather our information too.
So if they're transient or they move around a lot.
Correct.
Again, is what you're defining as resident of the city, someone who has checked in with you, and then 6 months later they're still checking in with you?
No, they
'cause they're
have
in
to
Hot
have a
Springs?
local ID that shows me that. That's what we require.
Okay, thank you.
Director Garcia?
Just for clarification, regarding when you're saying that local ID, you're talking about cases that you open up. But isn't the feeding program open to anyone that needs
That's correct.
request a meal? There's no ID?
There is nothing for that one.
And majority of them are not homeless.
That's
per
correct.
se. It's anyone that's in
That's
need.
correct.
And
That's correct.
that's what we're talking about, is resources for people in need.
Correct, yeah. We, like I said originally, we serve about 20,000
Yes.
local residents every year, not counting the lunch program. That's just in our normal services.
Yes, yeah, just clarification there. And one more, there was a mention of hiring, but we're not, nothing's been done to hire.
No.
A budget approval does not hire anyone.
Correct. That's
Okay.
what I
Just for
assumed.
clarification
Yeah.
for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Mr. Boyce Mitchell, please come forward and restate your name and address and district, please.
My name is Boyce Mitchell. I'm with Washita Behavioral Health, 125 Wellness Way. Is that your district? I'm not sure which district that's in.
District 5, right?
5, okay, okay. I just want to say thank you to you guys, all the board members, the people who are here today that's engaged, people that's for this resource center. I also want to thank the people that are not for this resource center because to me, that just strengthens my resolve, makes me get everything around the edges so I'm producing a better product and being a better steward with our resources. But it doesn't make me look away. And, I understand that there's some people here in this room that perhaps think that it's going to be a strain on our neighborhoods. It's going to be a strain on our resources. Going to have people coming and going. I believe that's going to happen anyway. 75 days, just 75 days. I put 21 individuals in the rehabilitation programs. 27 people have received their mental health and back on their meds. 20 families were helped, moved into stable places with the help of 100 families that I work with and got their kids back. 75 days. This is without a stabilized place and a centralized place. This is not charity. This is an investment for Hot Springs. This is going to result in fewer police calls because there are fewer addicts on the street. This is going to result in less hospitalizations, no strain on the hospitals. This is going to result of none of our seniors who have one bad high light bill or medication having to figure out how they're going to operate if they get evicted and get these resources. We tend to think that poverty means some of our addicts and people holding these street signs. I've got people that are calling me from an electrical fire that took out 2 floors of an apartment that have found themselves no rental insurance, lost everything. This is not just about our chronically homeless. This is about people in poverty. This is an investment so the people of Hot Springs can have a better Hot Springs. And if we got people in this room willing to tackle something like that, I think it deserves everybody's attention. If I can do that in 75 days with these folks, we can upscale this and really help people. And as far as people coming in and coming out of Hot Springs from other locations, that's happening in every county, because I'm in those also. I have put people on planes, I put people on trains, I put people on buses. They show me an out-of-state ID, and they call somebody on the other end that says they'll receive that individual, I go pay $300 for a bus ticket because they've got more support there. Wherever their support is, we're going to help them. We're going to try to get them there. We got resources all around this town, but people have froze to death because they didn't know where they were. So in closing, I just would ask everybody, let's make a better tomorrow for Hot Springs.
Do any directors have questions for Mr. Mitchell? Thank you. Lisa Biggers? Lisa? Vicar Julie Wesley?
Mayor,
Pardon?
just point of reference, can you say that other name again? There may be some in the back that can't hear you.
Lisa Biggers? Am I mispronouncing it?
No, that's her. She's not speaking.
She's not speaking.
Pardon?
She's not speaking.
Okay, thank you. Vicar Julie Wesley, please come forward, restate your name, address, and district, please.
Good evening. My name is Vicar Julie Wesley. My address is 12 Huntsman Court. I don't know what district that is. And I'm sorry, what else did you need?
That's fine.
That's it, okay. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak today in favor of the funding for the Community Resource Center. I am a member at Prince of Peace Lutheran Church, the church from whom you purchased the building. At the previous Board of Directors meeting, during which you decided to purchase that building for the purpose of establishing a resource center for those in need, I heard many residents of Hot Springs express their opposition. I heard concerns for the neighborhood, especially the Washita Children's Center across the street. Almost all of the concerns expressed characterized the foot traffic that might increase in the neighborhood as undesirable. There was talk of drug use and violent criminal behavior, and there was a definite implication that those in need who might visit the resource center presented a danger to the neighbors. I listened as my neighbors of Hot Springs dehumanized people who might be living without a home, people who might not know where their next meal would come from, people who needed help with the most basic means of survival. In 2016, I was one of those people. I was nearly homeless myself with 2 children in elementary school. The only reason we didn't end up homeless, living out of my car, was because the kind-hearted people of Prince of Peace Lutheran Church allowed us to live in the building, the same building that is now the Community Resource Center. 109 Hobson Avenue was my home address for a little more than a year. Take a look at me, because I am one of those people my neighbors of Hot Springs thought would endanger the children in the neighborhood. I am a licensed high school science teacher who couldn't get a job teaching in Hot Springs. At the time, I was otherwise employed, but making barely more than minimum wage at a part-time job, which was not enough to pay rent and utilities at an apartment. I had a college education and more than 15 years of professional experience. I was 39 years old. I'm a white woman from an upper middle class family. My children and I were also victims of domestic abuse and found ourselves in very difficult circumstances. I am not a criminal. I am not a drug user. I needed help, and I will be forever grateful to the people of Prince of Peace for helping me. I'm telling you my story today because the opposition to the funding of the Community Resource Center continues to be based on the opinion that those who are in need of help are somehow undeserving of assistance. They are the undesirables of our community. They are less than human. I urge you to recognize the humanity of those in need. They are people who are struggling and in need of care. The people who oppose this line item in the budget do so because they don't want their hard-earned tax dollars being used to help those people. I urge you to ignore those irrational voices and do the right thing. The Resource Center cannot be fully funded by voluntary donations funneled through churches and other nonprofits. The only way this dream of a resource center can become a reality for the good of our community is for the city to help with the funding. Thank you.
Do you have any questions? Thank you. Ms. Sally Carter, please come forward and restate your name, address, and district.
Thank you so much. Sally Carter, and I'm going to speak about the Resource Center just a second or two, and that certainly is in District 2. First, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for the forward thinking that you all have shown, as in many different centers and resource centers and shelters across this nation. Because as we researched, we went from Jonesboro to Fort Smith to Texarkana, all over this place. I called St. Louis, let's see, 2 more. Atlanta might have been one. And Every one of them told me this: if your city government and county government are not funding partners with you, it'll never work. They have to be a part of it. There are a variety of reasons ranging from economic efficiency to moral responsibility why city and county government should invest in services for the poor and homeless. The well-being of vulnerable populations is not only a reflection of a city or county's values, but it's also an essential to broader health, safety, and prosperity of the entire community. Addressing homelessness and people in poverty isn't just an act of charity. It's an investment in stronger, more resilient communities. It's critical to a growing economy. 20.4% of the people in Garland County live in poverty. That's almost a fifth of our population. 24% of the kids in Garland County live in poverty. They're identified as homeless. Folks, let that sink into you. We can continue to do the same things that we're doing, and we will get no kind of different results. But goodness, let's try something different. And I appreciate you for embracing that, part. A young lady with 3 kids walked into the cooling shelter this summer. Little kids were school age, and we asked, why are these kids not in school? Hot Springs School District had already started. And that lady said, well, you know, we only have 1 set of clothes, and their clothes are dirty, and my washing machine's broken. I have no way to fix it. So what we did is we discussed with her, why don't you give your kids a bath at night? So why not put them in the bathtub, give them a bar of soap, and let them have a big time. Let them wash those clothes in the bathtub, hang them up, and the next morning they'll be dry and ready to go. And we will certainly put you in contact with people that can help you with some other clothes. Those kids were in school the next day. We put that young woman in connection with Jackson House and with other referral agencies, and she now has 4 sets of clothes for those kids. You're right, Director Dobbs-Smith. It is for people in poverty. And goodness, we have a lot of them. It's personal with me because that's the way I grew up. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Director, or excuse me, Ms. Carter, Sally, did you have a question? Director, Sally, we might have you come back up. You're fine.
Shoot, I'm trying to get out of here.
Yeah, Director Webb.
Not so fast, Miss Sally.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for being here. I've got a statement I want to make, and then I've got a couple questions I want to ask you. So, I mean, as far as the resource center goes, for me, the main concern is, can this resource center be self-sufficient?
Yes, sir.
That was always the concern for me ever since the beginning. And I look at that and follow that question up with, how does this center reach that point? In my opinion, you got to have 3 things. Number 1, you got to have a site location. That's in place now, thanks to FERPA COVID money. You've got to have an operator. That's the line that's up for discussion here tonight. And then you've got to have grants or funding to take away the need to utilize any taxpayer money for a service that could go to a majority of those who might not be paying any taxes.
Yes, sir.
And so I reached out to you.
Mm-hmm.
And if we were to grant this operator line item for 24 months, what happens after 2 years? And this, of course, comes back to grants and funding. And I asked, can you explain to me what are the potential grants and funding? Where are you going to get your money from as this resource center starts and after 2 years?
Yes, sir.
Can you share with the board if the following funding opportunities that I share back with you are what you told me?
Yes, sir.
And you can
They are. I
even-
gave you an entire list of them.
Yes, ma'am. And you can even share with me, as I say each one, how much value it has, or potential value. Emergency Solutions Grant,
That's upwards of $100,000.
Balance of State Continuum of Care Grant,
Anywhere from what, boys, 30 to 50,000?
Oaklawn Foundation Grant,
That depends on how much we write that for, but you all probably are more familiar with the amounts.
Maybe Foundation Grant,
80,000.
Community Services Block Grants.
That's
That's
the,
CDACT.
that's CDBG?
Right.
Yes.
Going, okay. Crescig Foundation,
Right. They give grants of 50,000 and above.
Weinberg Foundation,
I don't know how much they give.
Walmart Foundation,
Walmart will give you anywhere from 20 to 25,000.
and that's a year.
That's a year.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Amazon Housing Equity Fund,
I'm investigating that now. Can't tell you
Okay.
how much.
Arkansas opioid funding.
There are a lot of money.
Is that
in
through
there.
the Arkansas Opioid Recovery Partnership?
Yes, it
Okay.
is.
Are you going to the partnership meeting December 4th?
I hope so.
Okay. FEMA money through United Way.
That's the United Way grants that they get through the Balance of State Continuum of Care. And we usually get what, 40,000, 40,000 of those?
You were mentioning too that your goal is to get 10 churches to pledge $1,000 per month.
Right.
How far along with that goal are you? Do you have confirmation of 10 churches here in Hot Springs?
Our first one is St. Luke's, who've pledged $1,000 a month. We have a representative from First Baptist. They're interested in talking to us. And I haven't been and visited those yet because we're not sure you're
Right.
gonna do this. You know,
You had mentioned the ESG grant too.
that's the first one that I told you
Oh,
about.
yeah, 60 to
Yes, sir.
100.
Yes, sir.
So I just want to bring that to the board's attention. You know, that concern was in my head. I reached out to you
Yeah.
to see
Read
if you
that
could.
last statement, Director, that I wrote to you back.
I'm looking at,
That if
You'll have
we
to
didn't
please let me know.
perform, if
Oh,
we
yeah.
were not able to help people, the statement to him was, number one.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, there you go.
sorry. The thing is this, Director Webb, we will be successful in offering services to people in poverty. You can bet on that. If we're not, close us down, take the building and sell it or use it for something else.
Correct.
I appreciate you sharing
Yes, sir.
your details about the grants.
Certainly, and I wanted to address something else with you. You know, when we take an oath, and I take one as a volunteer to serve, because I believe that's what God wants me to do. When you all take an oath, you take an oath to serve all of your constituents, everybody, and that includes poor people. That includes the people that are living on the street. That's what you do. You said, yes, that they're not paying taxes. Man, this may be a way we can get them to pay taxes.
Could be.
If we can get them off the street, great. If we can stabilize families, if we can make sure that lady, that single mama with those kids can stay housed and work, she's going to pay taxes. So again, if we do nothing different, then don't expect any kind of different results.
Just a couple final questions, Ms. Sally. How many of those grants do you think are almost in need of prerequisites in order to apply for? That meaning you need a site and you need operation.
You need a site and operation for most of them, almost all of them. In fact, I can't tell you of a one. First, we have to have it. before we can turn around and say, we have a center, and therefore we're needing funding from you. So that's the big thing.
If
And this will help us.
If all the pieces line up,
Yes, sir.
would you start applying for these grants month one, and how soon?
We've already started filling out applications.
For the grants
We
that
have-
I've listed here? You
We have a 501(c), the Friends of the Community Resource Center, that has just been approved as a nonprofit. And so we are starting the application process now. But if we don't have a center, then certainly we'll not be able to do what you ask us. Another thing I'd like to tell you is all these places that we have visited, they've all been so good to help us. They operate on these grants. They give us their funding information. So certainly, if somebody in Little Rock, if somebody in Texarkana, Fort Smith, Conway, if they can do it, why in the world could we not?
Thank you.
Can I add something? I would like to address some of the concerns about the grant. I've been operating on my grant for 10 years straight, and it's only increased every year.
Boyce
This-
is our caseworker, folks.
Our grants our grant is based on, unfortunately, they want to know how many people you're serving, where you're serving them at, and how many people are you helping. Then they decide to give you money. I've built that infrastructure. I've got over 350 people yearly that I'm seeing, and the people that come to do my audit only increase my audit. We got all of these nonprofits in the room at the same time. All of these numbers go on the application to ensure you have a better score. The infrastructure is already set up.
Oh, very good. Thank you.
And the people behind me, if you'll see, they are members of varying churches. I'm already on their schedule to go and talk with them. Did I answer your question, sir?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from,
I had a question for.
oh,
Sorry. Sorry. When you were talking, you brought some things to my mind that I wanted to ask you. One of them was one that probably Boyce could answer better. But when you were talking about the grants that you've applied for, and I did look at your 501c3 that you
Good.
formed. I looked at your plan for the grants, the different ones. I also saw those on other people's, that's how they receive their funds.
Yes,
Will
sir.
that hurt our existing nonprofits? And Boyce would probably be
Yeah.
'cause you're probably the one.
It doesn't
with
hurt.
most-
There's a pot of money that's drawn from that grant, and multiple entities can draw from it. How you score on your application depends on how much you get. The
I
fact
guess
that
I'm
fact that we're
concerned
all-
about a competition. It's not,
Well,
no.
the thing about it is, when my grant is a part of this resource center, the Jackson House is here with their grant, all their numbers. These are all numbers. If we're participating, going for the same grant that's helping this resource center, all of those numbers go on our application. It doesn't hurt anybody.
Okay.
It's all about creating a strong application so you score higher, so you are able to ask for more money.
Thank you for helping
So-
me understand that.
And one thing, Director Dobb Smith, Jackson House, we all contribute to Jackson House. We do. We work with Jackson House. If they're over there and they are doing the food program over there, we're going to participate in their fundraiser. We're not in the business of taking money away from anybody. How many nonprofits are represented here? Y'all raise your hands. Great. Okay, all of these nonprofits are part of us, and they all operate on grants.
Thank you for
We'll simply
clarifying
help
that.
them.
Thank you. Well, I had a couple more. These were all ones that, as you were talking, I wrote little notes. That you mentioned the continuum of care a couple of times. Now, isn't that with across the street at OCC? No?
The continuum of care is from SWAP. They call it SWAP. We're the Southwest Arkansas Partnership. It's all the counties, Clark County, Hot Spring, Garland, Pope, Montgomery. It's a gathering. What they do is when you get a grant, you're required, they do that when they give you the money with the requirements that you sit in the room with all the other nonprofits simply for what you're saying. So we create a network and not operate in silos, because that money is given to each individual organization, and they say you have to work together. You get your grant, I have a PATH grant for housing, you have a food insecurity, you have a domestic violence, you have this. It makes all of us get in the same room.
I just noticed that they were listed
that's
as
what
the
the
one
continuum
for
of care
our,
is.
for our region.
That's because they housed the person there who was in charge of the continuum of care in our district.
So this is still another partnership.
That's right.
And then the other question was, you mentioned that you'd visited several centers, and I was going to ask you, how are they funded? Are there cities funding their?
Most of them have funding that comes from their city and county. They operate just like we're talking about here. The churches, the nonprofits help with the services, the churches give money, city, county, and then they go after the grants. That's how I knew about the grants, is from the different centers that we visited. And they have been wonderful about sharing their information.
And then the last question, and this one I did have on my list, we're talking about $100,000 for the director, and I did do a little research on the nonprofit directors around in our area, like a salary comparison, and most of them are making about half of that. Is there a reason why is that to include some additional staff, maybe?
There will be additional staff, and it
$100,000.
will come out of the nonprofit. The nonprofit will pay for the additional staff.
So the security and all
But
that.
remember, the $100,000 now is also, you're talking about that salary and matching. So certainly, the salary is not going to be $100,000. But I would tell you right now that building and funding and trying to bring all of the nonprofits in, it's going to take a lot more work than just taking care of one particular area that you are with. This is from the ground up with this. I certainly understand the difference in that, but some of the other nonprofits may want to speak to that.
Thank you.
Very good. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate you. The Reverend Mark Neighbors, please come forward and restate your name, address, and district, please.
Good evening, Mark Neighbors, 503 Prospect. I think I'm in District 3, but I'm right on the line. Y'all have to see Dr. Sally Carter about once a month, maybe. I see her nigh every day. She's a force to be reckoned with. I'm the priest at your next door neighbor. We've been next door neighbors for a while at St. Luke's Episcopal Church. I've been there for about a year and a half, and one of the things that drew me here was their love for helping those in need, helping the vulnerable, whether they're homeless or in poverty or at that sort of hinge point where that serious poverty could tip over into homelessness. They're very passionate about helping those folks. They show up. They put their money where their mouth is. They certainly spend the time to make a difference. The first warming shelter in town was started at our parish hall. I wasn't here. It quickly outgrew that space. Since then, we've moved across town. We've been at the Salvation Army. We've been at First United. This past summer, we were very grateful to be in the Resource Center. And what I loved about the experience was that it's not just St. Luke's Hot Springs showing up. We had over 30 nonprofits and agencies represented, folks showing up to volunteer, to bring food, to interact with those with whom we were serving, to provide casework to help those who needed it get to that next spot in their life where they could get the help they need. Collaboration, I think, is the name of the game. Partnership is the name of the game. St. Luke's is in this because we believe that when we serve those in need, we are serving Christ himself. We don't see the poor and the homeless to be a problem. We see it to be an opportunity to meet God, just as we seek to meet God in worship. And what I found by working with these folks is that I have been transformed. I think I'm a better human, a better Christian, and a better priest because I work with these people, and I know a lot of folks behind me would say the same thing. So I want to say thank you for this partnership. Thank you for all you've done, for the money you've spent, for the hours you've dedicated to making this partnership and collaboration possible. Thank you for being part of this network that we are building. I know we are doing good work. This good work is going to continue. And if you haven't had the chance to join us in this work personally yet, I would invite you to do that, because I promise, like me, you'll be transformed. Thank you.
Very good. Any questions of Reverend Neighbors? Thank you. And our final individual has signed up is Miss Catherine Thompson. Miss Thompson, Catherine Thompson. All right. Well, that concludes, Catherine, please come forward and restate your name, address, please, and district.
I'm out of the county. I'm not in the city. Sorry.
Very good. Okay. Well, that concludes those who have signed up for speak on this resolution. Any discussion amongst directors? Director Garcia?
Thank you, Mayor. The question before us currently is approval of a budget, approximately $170 million rounded up. All the questions and discussion have been on a line item that is less than 0.0006%. That's the only questions I've heard out of a $170 million budget. However, as was mentioned earlier, we are funding in our next year's budget $4 million for the jail to house prisoners. $4 million. We are currently have expenditures in dealing with issues related to homeless encampments or other issues that pull from our police department, our sanitation department, our management of the department managers, department directors, our encampment cleanup. The bids for, depending on the size, have ranged from $6,000 to $17,000. And we have cleaned up tons and tons of garbage and trash related to the growth of these encampments when they were identified to be cleaned up. At the current rate, next year's projection, if nothing else was done, would be $204,000 spent on cleanup of these encampments. That is more than this one line item that's being questioned and discussed for less than 0.0006% of our total budget. We have heard that we have an increase in homeless, so it makes sense we need increased resources, because what has been done over the years has not decreased homeless. Nothing has been done to improve the people in these situations where they have a pathway. That this resource center presents a pathway for individuals to become self-sufficient. I just read a book about homelessness is a housing problem. And I attended hours and hours of training and met with other cities and cities officials. And I have information that Director Beard and I can share from the Conference of National League of Cities, where we met with cities facing this crisis across the country, from a city of 6,000 to as large as LA. But there are reasons why in some of these cities, they don't have the increase of homelessness that we have higher percentage in some of the bigger cities, because they have addressed it through policies and through what needed to be done to increase supply of available housing, which we will be looking at in the coming weeks, I'm sure, and we will be presenting some information to share with the board about that. It is a challenging housing market, and this issue of homelessness becomes more expensive, and we can look at why we are as a city in policies has contributed to not making the improvements we want to see. Providing a pathway through a resource center to help people improve their lives, therefore improving our community and our city, is well worth a line item of .0006 of our total budget. Thank you.
And we're under discussion amongst directors. Any additional discussion? Director Webb?
Thank you, Mayor. It is a big budget, and this issue did come up for discussion tonight, that we are addressing the line item for the potential director for the Resource Center. There are some issues here in Hot Springs related to homeless, poverty, underserved, mental health, and the list goes on. And if the city takes no action on these issues, it's fair to say that little to no improvements will be yielded. I also don't think it's right to just entertain hypothetical outcomes, negative hypothetical outcomes, without shedding light to potential positive outcomes by having this resource center. We are where we are on this resource center, and it was this board's decision to see it come full circle. If we approve this resource center director position and allow it to remain as a line item on our 2025 proposed budget, it will give this center a chance to succeed and not be a slap in the face to all the steps and action that many people of Hot Springs have taken to get this far. Although it wasn't always and isn't a favorite topic of discussion of mine, and I'm just keeping it real with you, and the big reason for that is because I do see a large portion of taxpayer money going towards these resources, where a majority of those at current time may not pay into those taxes. It is possible to think that many receiving this help from the center could and probably will have a stronger chance to rejoin the workforce of society to again support our city as taxpayers. I think it's doing right to give it this chance. And I listened to a lot of residents who contacted me over the past few weeks in regards to this specific line item in District 4, outside of District 4, all around Hot Springs. Residents, taxpayers, and more residents who support this center have contacted me than those who don't. For those running this center or with plans of running this center, not to just include the potential director, but to those who have a major hand, many of which who were speaking here tonight, I applaud your angelic spirit to help others. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we want to see come out of this resource centers. We want to see help. We want to see that help to not be taken advantage of by those who receive it, but for those who take this help and apply it to their life, to be given a second chance to be good stewards of our society. And I think y'all are doing a great service for those that are less fortunate. Having said that, and based on everything that we've listened to tonight and the conversations and data that I've collected over the past few weeks, I'm expecting you to reach self-sufficiency status by the end of these 2 years, and I hope that you do. I do think it may be important moving forward, if not tonight, to maybe have someone with city staff do clarify what happens with liability for those that are present at the resource center for the chance that there be any type of crime committed or something should happen to someone where they are injured at this resource center, who's liable for it, or do we have any way to maybe produce liability waiving documents to be signed by those who receive services, something along that matter. And that's all I think I've got to say. Thank you.
Director Holliday?
Thank you. Kind of to dovetail on Director Garcia's point, this is a massive budget, and I wanted to just personally thank staff, and I do appreciate everyone who came to speak specifically on the Resource Center, but I don't want that to overshadow the fact that it's a $170 million budget. And there are so many people in this room that were part of that process, particularly in finance in the city manager's office. And so you guys make this easily digestible for those of us who aren't in finance, and I appreciate that. And I just appreciate everyone's willingness and diligence to come in, even on something as impactful but as small as this one line item on the budget. So that was just kind of my point of privilege to say that, I appreciate everything that everyone does to make it easy for us to understand, to make it possible for the public to participate. I do have a feeling that we probably won't see this on an election night again for that very point, but I appreciate where we've gotten, and I appreciate everybody's willingness to really dive deep. I think it's a testament to our residents, but also to our staff to be able to do it. So we don't always agree on where it needs to land, but I think we do a really good job of keeping our eye on the overarching goal. So thanks to everyone who's been a part of the conversation. So I'm glad we've made it.
Okay. Any additional comments or questions?
I'm going to save my comment for board commentary.
Okay, very good. Well, as we close on this resolution, I just want to make one comment. As Director Garcia, did the math on the percent of the resource center allocation to the total budget. We have 675 budgeted employee slots across the city and across all of our services, and we're allocating one to this resource center. So I don't think that should be an issue. So, but be that as it may, hearing no further questions, please call the roll.
Director Beard?
Aye.
Dobbs Smith?
Aye.
Webb?
Aye.
Garcia? Aye. Trustee?
Aye.
Holliday?
Aye.
Mayor McCabe?
Aye. The resolution is adopted. Thank you. We have two further action items this evening. Both are ordinances, and we'll begin with ordinance O-24-35, and I'll entertain a motion and a second to suspend the rules and read by title. Director Trustee, second by Director Garcia. I got a motion and a second to read by title. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Council, please read by title.
Ordinance O-24-35, an ordinance waiving competitive bidding and approving the purchase of certain Headworks International, Inc. bar screen parts from Instrument Supply, Inc. pursuant to Arkansas Code annotated section 14-47-138. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would, entertain a motion second to adopt.
So moved.
Director Garcia, second by Director Trustee, and Mr. Todd Pillar, Engineering Project Manager, will provide the staff report. Welcome.
Thank you and good evening. This is for our upgrade of our screen like we did at Hot Springs Creek Pump Station. The board approved a CMAR contract with Max Foot Construction earlier this year, and it's for the existing screen, just serves the existing, I'm going to call it low water lift station, but we're going to get it rebuilt and replace the stainless steel parts and upgrades so that when Max Foot puts in the new headwork structure, that the screen will protect not only the existing pumps, with the new 500 horsepower pumps that we're putting in on the wet weather flow. And the new screen would be about $550,000 to $600,000. And to get this rebuilt, the total cost was $161,032.60. And it will become out of the wastewater bond fund. And it should be about a 2 or 3 month process. So I think I sent Bill a picture. Max Foot has built a temporary screen in the manhole to protect the existing pumps while the screen's off being refurbished.
Very good. Any questions of Mr. Pillar? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody sign up?
No, sir.
Discussion amongst directors? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Director Dobbs Smith.
Aye.
Webb.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Trustee.
Aye.
Holliday.
Aye.
Beard.
Aye.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Ordinance is adopted. Our final action of the evening is to consider ordinance O-24-36, and I entertain a motion to suspend the rules and to read by title.
So moved.
Only Director Trustee, seconded by
Second.
Director Holliday. I have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and read by title. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Council, please read by title.
Ordinance O-24-36, ordinance adopting a zoning code for the city of Hot Springs, Arkansas under Title 16, Chapter 2 of the Hot Springs Code of Ordinances, repealing certain ordinances and for other purposes. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would entertain a motion second to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Director Garcia, seconded by
Second.
Director Holliday. And the staff report will be provided by Planning and Development Director, Ms. Kathy Selman.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Kathy, before you begin, I'm sorry to mess you up, but you have a lot of the planning commissioners
I
here. Will
do.
you introduce them, please?
Yes.
Because they were integral in this.
They were. I mean, I was ready to name them anyway, and I thought they would take the opportunity to watch us on YouTube, but darn it, they turned out again. And so, thank you. I want to thank you for that. Bill Lamont. Yep. Garrett Collier. Janice Davis. LaDante Walker. Bart Stafford. Ashley Campbell. Brian Gerke is back there. And did I miss anyone? And they are the most amazing group.
Most of them.
I don't think we'd be here tonight with this excellent proposed zoning without these people, because they have been there for you. I wanted to start, as I often like to do, with a couple of quotes. One, a good plan today is better than a perfect plan next week. That was from General George S. Patton in the 1900s. And the second one, better is the enemy of the good. And that was from a French Enlightenment writer, philosopher, and historian, Voltaire. These two guys have very little in common, other than that they have made it into my notebook of favorite thoughts. But I think they give us food for thought tonight as we consider Code Forward. In each of their statements, we find a similar message, and that is that in aiming for the perfect solution or state, we may fail to take a step towards our final goals. In 2020, the board adopted Forward Hot Springs 2040. And that's the city's plan for prosperous lives and good neighborhoods in a great city. While the plan set certain goals and activities, a plan does not bind the current board or any future board of directors. And implementing plan goals requires individual decisions through budget, policy, and ordinance adoptions. Our board of directors, you, identified formulating a new zoning code in your annual priorities for 2022, 23, and 24. And by behalf of the Hot Springs Planning Commission, thank you for funding and supporting this multi-year effort. Code Forward, our proposed zoning code, represents hundreds of hours of public and private participants who generously shared their ideas about how the city can best move toward Forward Hot Springs' vision and objectives. And we included in your packet a partial list of those people who contributed. It's by no means an exhaustive list of participants, but we wanted to give you a flavor for who has been involved. You've met many of the planning commissioners tonight. Not with us tonight are Pranisa Sharma and Reverend Corey Scott, Bill Vowell, Rick Ramick, and former planning commissioner Doretha Yates, as well as our planning commissioners from 2022 and 23. Their commitment to this project was amazing, assessing pros and cons of potential methods for achieving plan goals. They made many complicated and difficult decisions in putting this proposal together. Code Forward applies to development that will be initiated after the effective date of the ordinance, replacing current zoning regulations and replacing the current zoning map. A little bit about what zoning is for people who haven't spent hundreds of hours talking about it. Zoning has two parts: the text that we find in Hot Springs Code and the zoning map. Planning Commission looked deeply into the topics of housing, future land uses, signs and landscaping, determining the need for more comprehensive study before recommending new approaches on those particular things. And tonight, we'll consider amending both code language and the zoning map. The Commission's study of alternative housing options, including manufactured homes, resulted in retaining the current code's manufactured home overlay method, and consistent with both the Forward Hot Springs plan and the Hot Springs housing strategy. Planning commissioners have stated they are committed to re-examining housing questions in more depth in the upcoming years. And in case I don't remember to do this, thank you for adopting that budget and acknowledging those goals. The things that Planning Commission specifically identified as areas requiring more study, you have accepted those, and that's great. They will be looking at, in addition to housing, the future land use plan map, sign design requirements, and landscaping. Few of the changes in Code Forward 3.0 will be some new district names for all zones, except for CTR, commercial transitional. There are some new residential districts proposed. RN3 specifically is a residential zone with very small lots, 3,000 square feet, intended to encourage small lot, single-family home development and helping us to achieve some of those goals in the housing strategy by having a minimum lot size that may be more attainable. A new district named Residential Neighborhood 4 transitions from purely single-family to other missing middle options. RN6 specifically enables townhouse and multifamily development. We have new non-residential zones for commercial mixed use, industrial mixed use, and institutional. INST for campus type developments such as educational and medical complexes. General development standards are now together in one chapter to make it easier for people to find and use them. One of the goals that we had in doing this project was to make the code more practical for someone who is looking for how to do things. A follow-up to the proposed changes to the code will be a kind of a user manual that will walk people through how to more easily understand what's in the code, what the goals of the board and planning commission are in adopting it, and how to be successful in making a request for a development. Code Forward 3.0 recommends allowing non-residential developments to establish their own parking minimums based upon the needs of their specific business models. Many businesses, especially franchises and national brands, already have specific parking requirements that are closely tailored to the needs of their business. And we have been enforcing some fairly, random standards for people's projects over the years, and this will allow proposed development to more closely align with the development requirements of the use itself, and also to help us maybe dedicate less of our land to parking only. Code Forward aims to minimize nonconformity. We've taken special care to align new zone districts with existing on-site uses where there are uses already. For example, if a permitted use existing at the time of ordinance approval should become conditional under the new code, that use will be deemed approved as a conditional use rather than non-conforming, as we have done in the past. And finally, as community priorities and goals change, so too may the zoning code change by way of amendments approved by the Board of Directors. It's more than likely that as times change and new situations or technologies come up, we will adapt the zoning code standards and map to reflect new plans to move our city toward community goals. And one final quote, this from Yogi Berra: "Make a game plan and stick to it unless it's not working." Planning Commission at their duly advertised October 10th, 2024 meeting, by their 9-0 vote, recommended that the Board of Directors adopt an ordinance deleting Hot Springs Code Title 16, Chapter 2 zoning, and adopt a new Title 16, Chapter 2 zoning, which is in your packet, and adopt a new zoning map, also in your packet. And again, thank you for approving in the budget the 2025 work plan, to which Planning Commission has committed its efforts over the next 1 year. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions of Ms. Salmon on this ordinance? Director Dobbs-Smith.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you so much for all the work that you put into this. I attended several of the sessions and heard some good questions, and I know that they were heard because some of the changes that were made or not made were part of those discussions. There was a letter to the editor a few days ago that made a statement that I don't recall seeing there. Has there been a change to the presence of rehab centers in the middle of neighborhoods? Has that something changed there?
Not
because I don't recall reading that. I don't recall seeing that, and I just wanted to get your.
No, I will admit I didn't read what you're talking about, so I'm not familiar with that.
It was alluding to some changes being made in this code about.
It was domestic violence shelters.
Domestic violence shelters, okay. Shelters, I heard the word shelter. And I didn't recall that being part of the code that was changed.
We rarely know where domestic violence shelters are.
For good reason.
For very good reason.
That was all, but thank you
Yeah.
so much for all that work. And I know I visited with several of the commissioners as well, and they thought the process was grueling but wonderful. Thank you.
It was grueling.
Director Garcia?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you and everyone involved in moving this forward. I've been an advocate of codifying what our plans have picked up from all residents and the board and planning commission as changes that we need to make, and am very happy in seeing the protection of our, particularly our lake properties, and due to our geography, just erosion in general. And I thank everyone for staying true to what our plans had laid out and they wanted to be included. I had a question too. One was in trying to read the map that was on our last page. It was hard for me to see on the overlay districts, manufacturing overlay districts, current and proposed, but are we going to be able to add more areas where manufactured homes would be allowed?
Yes. At this time, a proposal to add an area is considered individually as a change to the zoning map, goes to Planning Commission, they make a recommendation, and then based on the site-specific conditions, their recommendation comes to you. So that is not proposed to change.
Okay, and the second was regarding the fences and the questions I had in my neighborhood were with garden homes, there are a lot of very small yards. And they had their backyard was small, so the fence wasn't just across the backyard and back, but came up to the side of their house to have that area for dogs or children or whatever. And there was a question that was still, I understood that's still allowed.
It
And
is.
so the size and the solid fence, if there was a need for them in the front yard, there is a process where that could be requested.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
BZA is able to accept and consider a variance from nominal standards, and that fence standard is a nominal standard, so.
Okay,
yes.
I just wanted to make sure I understood that correctly.
Yes.
And again, this is phenomenal work. Thank you to everybody.
Director Webb?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, Miss Kathy, I want to thank you too, and your team, everybody that you introduced, and those who couldn't be here today for putting in the work. I want to thank you and Punisa too for being a part of my town hall a few weeks ago. She had a great presentation, and there were some questions that did come up later on, but they were in statements. They were really just appreciative for us taking the initiative to revise the code after so many years and make it more applicable to today's setting. The only question I had, well, I had a lot, but then as I listened and focused more on the 3.0 version, those questions were answered, so I'm not going to waste anybody's time bringing those questions up. But one note that I did have down was in regard to the fence, because that was an issue amongst others that we had talked about when you presented 2.0 to us a few months ago. And that is that I noticed that 4 feet was still the max height for the front yard, but Director Garcia was mentioning that, and then you just said that that's nominal. So if anybody were to have some individualized scenario to where 4 feet is not high enough for a solid fence, they could apply to have it higher?
Yes.
Okay, and then what is the process for doing that?
That is the same as for any request to vary from a nominal standard, application to the Board of Zoning Adjustment.
Okay.
And anyone who is interested in doing that, we can walk them through what the requirements are, help them put their application together, and move it along to the board.
That was for the most part just for the front yard, wasn't it? The 4
Yes.
feet solid fence standard. And if you don't mind me asking, where did 4 feet come from? How did you land on that number?
4 feet is not a magic number by any means. It is a number that's used in many communities as being sufficient to contain a medium-sized dog not interested in climbing. And, you know, that's about it. It's not science.
So if safety or privacy were a concern, would those two areas be legitimate reasons to apply for a nominal consideration to have the feet increased?
Yeah, they might be.
I'm thinking of children, those that have children that are a little older and they only have a front yard.
Right.
And so they've got that 4-foot fence there, but you know, any child that has some type of athletic ability could easily jump over that 4-foot fence. So if they were to recommend a taller fence to help with safety for their children and to maintain just that space for their child to go to and maybe not jump over the fence to get out in the road, they could request a higher fence. What is the max?
I would actually love to tell you that that would be likely to be approved, but I really don't think it is. The BZA looks at things usually specifically related to the nature of the land and where there is a practical difficulty in not complying with the code. I can tell you that in the past, there is another way that this could be handled as well, and that is in the case of someone with a disability. And I can think of a case where someone had a child on the spectrum who was bothered by cars going by and needed a solid fence in the front yard. And that can be handled under reasonable accommodation. So there are a variety of ways. If somebody is having a problem keeping their kids in the yard, I'm not sure where to go with that.
Well, the bottom line is
they can make a request.
You make a request.
They can make the
and
request.
provide their reasoning. Thank you.
Any additional questions? Director Holliday?
Thanks. Echoing the sentiment of gratitude for everyone. I know this has been a huge process. It's exciting. As I was looking through things, it's also equally frustrating now that I don't know where to find anything.
Yeah.
We have to relearn. Yeah. You know, it's
You
like
got 4 months.
I know. I was like, I mean, it's findable. I mean, it's easy to navigate. It's just, you know, the landmarks are different. I do want to say the visuals that were included are incredibly helpful. I know historically when I've tried to help people understand things like setbacks, a lot of times it was just words. And so the fact that there's information in here really clearly explaining what a setback is or whatever component is, I think that's going to be hugely helpful moving forward. I have a couple of questions that have come from neighbors. And so one is, you know, is there any process for neighboring properties or businesses to object to an adjacent use if it is a permitted use? Because currently I would say perhaps not. And where this came from was when you look through, I don't know what we're calling it now, but the table of permitted uses, in institutional, it happens to be alphabetically that daycare and drug treatment are next to each other. And I think that kind of piqued some interest in that if there's a daycare and drug treatment is permitted and it happens to be the same zone, is there any anything that a community could do to maybe counter something that is dislike being next to each other?
Well, it depends. If it's a conditional use,
permitted.
absolutely.
Those two are both permitted in that institutional, in that newer zone. And part of it is, and I understand it's highly unlikely, but it's not impossible.
Okay. Thank you for that additional information. The institutional zone is intended to be a multi-use zone typically under single ownership or management. So a hospital, for example, might have both a daycare center, perhaps for employees, and a drug treatment program. So these would not be likely to independently choose to locate in that zone. They typically would be under the control of some umbrella agency or management.
Okay, that makes sense. And that's what I was kind of wondering, because I would imagine as people request for adjacent rezones, institutional is not one that would necessarily go parcel by parcel the
No.
way other zones would.
It would not.
Okay, so in residential districts, and this is specific, it's, I think, where Director Dobbs-Smith was going. So we do have domestic violence shelters permitted in residential districts. And my question actually had to do with maximum occupancy, because we do have care homes that are permitted with 8 and under, conditional 8 and over in most of those residential districts. But a DV shelter could be a converted home, or it could be a more institutional type facility that could be constructed. And so, do those occupancy requirements still fall into that, or?
They would.
Okay.
They would be limited to that 8, no
Okay.
more than 8 unrelated.
Okay, so it's not as if someone would build to the edges of a lot in the middle of a neighborhood to build
Not
up?
typically, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
And also in residential districts, since we have so many now, if someone were to have 2 lots next to each other, would it now not be allowed to combine those to do a lot line change and combine them to put like a larger home in the middle? Because
No.
then it would.
No change.
Okay. Oh, and then the last one had to do with building heights. Does the historic district have a different oversight with respect to these building heights?
The historic district preempts, and whatever is more restrictive is what goes.
Okay. And then with, so in the building height section, it says that there's this long list of things that do not have maximum height limitations, like chimneys and steeples and such. What oversight is there to determine what the appropriate height is? Because I've only seen in all of this where communication towers can only extend 15 feet above whatever surface they're on. However, some of these things could be excessive if they're on top of another structure, or if they just exist. And so other than just going through your office, is there anything that would go through planning for additional oversight, or is it just through the planning go through the planning commission versus the planning department?
It depends. And that's an interesting question because those things are exempt now also.
Right.
And we have not experienced difficulty. That doesn't mean we won't.
Right.
But there is no history of problems with those exempt pieces of structures.
Yeah, the only specific I could think of is I know someone was downtown in the historic district had tried to add above, and that ran up against the historic district, and so that's why I was questioning, because especially with respect to, like scenery lofts or just mechanicals. So, yeah, so those were my questions. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Anybody sign up to speak?
No, sir.
I guess we might have been already through that. No, we're not. So no one else signed up to speak, and so any further discussion amongst directors? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Director Webb.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Trustee.
Aye.
Holliday.
Aye.
Beard.
Aye.
Dobbs-Smith.
Aye.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Ordinance is adopted. That concludes the business action items for this evening. We're under board commentary. The Board of Directors have an item for discussion. Director Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. I first wanted to give congratulations to our Parks Director for his recent graduation of the Class 20 LEADAR program through the University of Arkansas. That was a 2-year program. I saw that he recently graduated, and that was well done from what I have read about. Also, I wanted to ask the board if they would consider asking our Transportation Advisory Committee to review the city code regarding our transportation codes and permitting and what they advise the board on. Since I've been on the board, that has not been done. In fact, since the time the parking garage was built, that has not been review and update that. And with the additional accidents that's been downtown with pedestrians that were injured, I wondered if we could not ask for their review and any advice recommendations they may have concerning transportation codes.
Yeah, Director Garcia, that's really a big goal of mine for next year in 25, is to try to revamp that entire code. It's unwieldy, it doesn't work. So that's definitely something that we got on the radar.
Minds are thinking alike there. I think we have a common birthdays too.
Are you Vulcan?
It's a beautiful mind.
Yeah.
All right, any other items
Thank
for
you.
discussion? Director Beard.
Thank you, Mayor. We spent a lot of time talking about homelessness tonight and the resource center. And so my question is, what's going on with the Landlord Summit? Has that been scheduled yet?
It has not.
Why not?
We've been a little busy, but we'll get it, we'll get it scheduled.
Well, I just want to reiterate, do a little timeline. In March of this year, we've had the ongoing this homeless crisis has been going on way before I got into office, but I did go to Washington on behalf of all the people that need help with this issue. In April, I met with the HUD official and residents that have been done wrong by landlords. May 29th, the HUD official met with staff. October 8th, the HUD official offered a landlord summit to help us with our ongoing housing crisis, and December, it will be December before we meet again. So my question is, or my request is, I would like this landlord summit to be scheduled before any iota of bonuses are discussed. And we need to put the people first before any kind of bonuses are even discussed. It's very important, and this has been a priority of mine as long as I've sat in this seat. So do I need to make a motion for that? Or I would like to make a motion to schedule the landlord summit.
I'm confused. I think I may be confused on what we're talking about.
The landlord summit that was supposed to, or should have been scheduled by now.
Well, the gentleman from HUD in Little Rock offered to come down and educate landlords on the HUD voucher programs or other HUD housing programs that they may qualify for, so there's no misconception. Is that what you're talking about?
The landlord summit, whatever he was going to offer, and he was also encouraging landlords to discuss or take vouchers, because the problem that we're having with landlords and their treatment of tenants and then the conditions that tenants have to live in is a problem, and it, in my eyes, contributes to homelessness. So we're spending all the money on the homeless or the resource center, and then we have some landlords that are also contributing to the problem. And he has offered help And I don't know why it hasn't been taken up. That
Well,
offer hasn't been taken up.
We have the landlord committee, right? Or what is that group?
We had an ad hoc committee.
Ad hoc.
They finished what they were designed to work for. They're no longer in existence.
There is a local landlord
There-
association.
yeah, there's a landlord association.
So it seems to me that if we were to put the association together with Mr. Marable, and try to get that scheduled, soon, given his availability.
Yeah, but I don't know if you recall, he came here and asked for a landlord summit, and then he also said he was waiting back from the city manager. So the ad hoc committee that was supposed to form the air conditioning ordinance, that favored the landlords. So lots of things happening are favoring landlords, and we still don't have anything for tenants. So when he came here, he left and said that he was waiting to hear back from the city manager about when to schedule the landlord summit, and he had information that was going to help landlords get together or provide more suitable options for tenants. And it's very important, so I've asked this question before, and I did not, from the answer that I was given, it did not seem important, but it is very important because this is a HUD official that's here to offer help, and I don't know why it's not been taken up.
I think we all recognize that it's a task that needs to be completed. I certainly understand city administration focusing on a lot of other major projects. The neighborhood, or excuse me, the landlord association is probably the right conduit for that. If we have to take a subset of the ad hoc committee to assist in that, we certainly can. I mean, basically, it's going to be a phone call at this time. The budget's approved. It doesn't mean that there's no work to be done. It just means that we can tie some of these loose strings. Director Garcia?
I agree. If I understood, the city manager said that someone in his office would coordinate getting that schedule. Not that it would be done, the meeting, but just get a schedule of that summit meeting.
And I have had communication with Mr. Marable. He has not brought that up to me.
It's on tape.
In my conversation since that time with Mr. Marable, he has not brought that up to me. He has sent me a couple of webinars that were more for state, not for cities. I'm not sure who is currently over the Landlord Association, but if Mr. Marable's wanting to meet with them, I can get him that contact. If you'd like staff to set up that meeting, we can do that. But yeah, I mean, I'm not sure who the Landlord Association is right now. Is Ms. Grant still part of that? Do you know?
I don't believe she is. I believe Hillary Jeanette.
There you go. We had correspondence from them
sometime
last,
ago.
Last year, sounds like.
I'm a little.
Yes, with the housing authority.
Yes, but I'm not for sure what the landlord summit or the landlord association has to do with what I'm speaking of. Mr. Marable stood here on the 8th of October and said that he wanted the city manager to schedule a landlord summit so that he could meet with landlords. So the landlord association is a sidebar, and he stood here and said that he was waiting to, and he offered that, and that's on the YouTube channel. So I'm not for sure why this is why you don't remember, but we or the assignment, if I can use that, was to schedule a landlord summit so that he could do things like offer landlords incentives to take vouchers, and that's not so. Just that. I've asked this question before. I did ask you that like 2 board meetings ago.
Yeah.
So I didn't get any kind of inkling or indication that this was something that you wanted, that you thought was important.
Well, I think it's important. I think we've had other priorities. If everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. This budget document has taken up immense amount of time. I could we could set a time in this room and invite landlords and invite Mr. Marable to come. I don't know that I can make landlords come, but we can make the facility available for those that want to come and learn more about the voucher program. I'm thinking the landlord association because that's who has that conduit of contacts. I don't know who the landlords are.
Okay,
That's
well,
gonna be my, may I ask a question of the city manager? Do landlords have to have a occupation or a whatever we
Not
call it now,
presently.
business? They don't. So unless you just looked on tax records and saw who owns property and rents property, do we have any way of knowing? I think that's why we're mentioning the landlord association.
That's the only one I know
Because you
of.
would think, maybe there's some larger.
We can certainly
Well, yeah.
publicize it, via the
And-
social media platforms that the city has.
This is more for particularly the landlords that receive HUD money. Those are the landlords that would want to come because they get HUD money and they also have a standard that they're supposed to uphold, like over at Greenbrier. And that wasn't help, that's rampant in the city. So it's not maybe just any random landlord would be interested or want to come, but if they're getting HUD money, then they have a certain standard for their housing units that they are supposed to uphold, and that's not been happening.
Well, maybe Mr. Marable could give us that contact list. I mean, if they're receiving HUD money, he probably has their contact information more than staff would.
And
But
that
I
was,
could
that
reach
was
out to
certainly
him.
part of the discussion, but the other part of the discussion was why are landlords afraid to be a part of the voucher system?
Yeah.
And he had information that he wanted to share with those landlords to dispel their concerns or hesitation in participating in that program. So,
That's basically where we left off with that, but the city manager was supposed to schedule that, and that's my question. That is my question that I'm asking right now.
I'm still not sure what I'm supposed to schedule.
Well, I will send you the link on the YouTube because
I have it.
he stood here and explained what,
I think the goal was to expand the number of available housing units within the HUD voucher program and to educate people who weren't participating to get them to participate in that program. So I think that we can probably work through the landlord association. We can certainly reach out to Representative McGrew, who has, at least at one time, if not still, multiple housing units available. Of course, he will know other people
Daniel
who,
Brown.
who can pull in. But again, the goal was to expand the available units.
you might have heard it different than
Well,
I did, but we still
It
didn't.
wasn't from the enforcement of the existing, it was to expand housing units that would accept a voucher.
Well, can we agree that this summit needs to still
We
happen?
can agree to that, we'll do
Okay.
that, certainly do. Any other, Director Webb?
Well, thank you, Mayor. I've got 3 comments or 3 different areas, and I'll try to get through it pretty quick. The first is I just want to acknowledge our city staff for doing a great job of putting together our budget. It was a big budget, as we alluded to earlier, that was on the positive side of things for 2 years in a row, and that is a commendable job by our city staff, our city manager, Ms. Karen, with finances, and probably a slew of others who I don't know who to specifically name, but I know it takes a team to put something of that quality together, so I appreciate y'all's work in that. There were many great feats that were included in this budget, all of which I don't probably have enough time to name, but I do want to commend Ms. Hannah Rice as a result of this budget for now having a full-time position with Parks and Trails. And Ms. Hannah is who, as many of us remember, took the place of Mr. Ken Freeman. And I never knew he was part-time at the time because that man was here, there, and everywhere. And his wife was right there along his side. They did a lot of great things for the city of Hot Springs, not just in Parks and Trails, but just in community involvement. So his shoes were massive shoes to fill, and Hannah is doing a great job of stepping into those shoes. Her feet might not be quite as big as his were, but she is putting some sparkle to her shoes, and she's here, there, and everywhere just like he is too. And that Parks and Trails Department is really beautifying our city. They're doing a great job. Also, it's nice to hear that the city is on board to continue to be there for help for the senior center as it progresses on the county side. I want to thank our staff for putting together plans to initiate a master sports complex or a sports complex master plan, and then also for paying attention to Kimry and bringing those lights to Kimry to help with public safety and the community who is involved in those soccer fields at Kimry Park. That was one, Mayor. Now I'm on two. So two, the 911 system or PSAPs for Garland County. First question, and I'll stop in a minute where you can address it. This might be for B, but do we have any update on that in a short scope? And, you know, like any decision that comes out of a board, you know, the decision of the state's 911 board was to not give Garland County 2 PSAPs, which we feel different. Having volume of calls between the city and county in excess of 80,000 per year, and the chief and the sheriff, I think both who support having 2 PSAPs, the numbers, the law enforcement directors of county and city both being in support of having 2 PSAPs, and I think a majority, if not all of the directors too, and city staff. Are we not allowed any type of due process? I know B, you and Bill both have gone before the 911 board since their decision has come out to be a voice to convey that we should have 2 PSAPs, and I've heard great things about your presentation for the city to make the case that 2 PSAPs are what we need in Garland County. But any decision that's ever happened for a board, it seems as if there's always that right to appeal. So do we have that right to appeal, and could that appeal take place before a judge so that we have a third-party moderator to make a decision?
Yeah, in an instance like this, it's more about the funding than whether or not we have to have consolidated PCs. So they're not forcing us to consolidate yet. What they are saying is that they will not fund our portion.
And we did appeal. You know, we went up to Camp Robinson. I think there were 5
full board.
Yeah, the 911 board. I think there were 5 appeals that day. We were told, one, that we had the best presentation of any of the groups. We were also told before we walked in that we were wasting our time. The decision had already been made. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. You hear those things. So we gave what I thought was a great presentation. 4 of the 5 were approved. Ours was not. I think it may go back to, you know, some conversations that the judge and I had with the 2 directors on pitching why we thought we needed one. Since that time, we went on a tour. We went and visited the locations that they recommended we go see on how they were consolidating. Chief Harverton, myself, and City Manager Albright, City Attorney Albright, we went there to both of those, and neither of those had consolidated. They were under one roof, but had not been able to consolidate, and those were for various reasons. One of those was Spillman, and one of those was Chief, help me, Southern. Same CAD systems that we in the county have, and they were not able to bridge those at the time. One of those that we went to was basically an underground bunker, and the counties, I think it was the county's dispatchers, they weren't sure how they were going to do that because they were on a different pay system. They're on different vacations, PTO systems. They had time that was built up that they weren't going to pay the employees for. When they moved over, it was kind of a mess from what I heard that day in that particular one. The other, they were going to stay within one consolidated roof, but they were gonna learn both CAD systems and rotate every couple of weeks or every week who was going to sit at each one of those stations. And I think one of them, they even had both of them running
They
on
did.
the same
They did.
consoles.
You might be at Spillman for this week, and then next week you're gonna be at Southern, and then the next week you're gonna be at.
Where did you say that was?
I mean.
We went to Conway and Faulkner County, and Bryant and Saline County. Was it Bryant
And
or
so,
Benton?
so, it was in Benton, but it was Benton, Bryant, Saline County.
County.
And they had one other dispatcher in there. Was that ambulance? Maybe.
Bryant, Benton, and Saline.
But I think there was a fourth in that same room.
So as of today, that's still
Mhm.
ongoing?
It is.
But the appeal was in front of just the full state 911 board?
Right.
What about taking it to a court? Is that an option? I mean, I do realize that the state 911 board is in an amended bill, right, or an amendment. It was passed through legislation, so they do have autonomy, to make decisions in this matter. But I think one thing that we also uncovered is that this whole process lacked an unbiased measuring rubric. There isn't any way that somebody could point to why this one was given 2, but this one 1, and that one 3, and so forth. And so,
They based a lot of their decisions on Federal Engineering's report, who also had us building out our system. I spent a lot of time detailing certain things throughout that report, and when we went over there for that meeting, I would bring up this section of the Federal Engineering report that they used to make these decisions, and you go, oh, we're not implementing that one, we're not doing that one. We'd go to the next one, I'd bring up another point, oh yeah, but we didn't implement that part of Federal Engineering. And I'm not sure they did any of the Federal Engineering report.
Well,
But that was what they based their decision on with our legislators.
if we have the option and the means, I want to request that we look into maybe appealing to a court of higher authority.
We can discuss that more with you,
Okay,
I think.
or at least bring it back for discussion.
Sure.
And the last one, at the work session, November 5th, as Mr. Dan Jackson was presenting the rate analysis for the wastewater bond that's coming up, I requested that he get back to the board a new additional rate analysis to include what it might look like having a senior discount. And this is taken into context both projects, projects to be completed within 3 years and then those to be completed within 5, for a total bond to be somewhere between 68.5 and 70. Do we know if he's got that ready, or will he have it ready? And that's the first question. Then the next one is I want to also request that a rate analysis be done for just bond acquisition to cover the projects to be completed in 3 years only. What does that look like? Like if we were to secure a bond for just the projects in 3 years, that's a total of $43.5 million instead of the full range for the up to 5 years, and also including a senior discount with it too.
Okay, so I'm going to try to address those real quick.
Thank you.
We looked at doing those at different stages like you're recommending, and the long-term cost was going to be more if we waited, and that's why we're doing it all now under a taxable, non-taxable. Dan Jackson has looked at that. When he did that in Bryant, the average age in Bryant was 39 years old. We have a totally different demographic. He will be here to present next at our rate meeting. He is not going to recommend that we implement a senior citizen discount. I think one of the things that he told me, and I'll let him tell you, but I think he said if we were to implement a discount, everyone else would have to pay an additional, was it $7? Oh, it was an additional $3.50, I think. Yeah, that would have taken theirs higher. Some of the other things that he alluded to is, about 70% of our births are with Medicaid patients. And so he got into a mother who may have 3 children receiving Medicaid is going to subsidize someone that lives in a $3 million house on the lake because they're over 65. There's no really way to disparage that. So his recommendation is going to come back that we do not implement a senior citizens discount with the demographic that we have. And I'll let him explain that, but that's what we've gotten from him so far. That's what's going to be coming to you in the recommendation in the bond.
Was he implying too, or was he saying that the average age in 39 means that, and that was for Bryant, which means that there are fewer who would receive the senior discount in Bryant than on a percentage based on Hot Springs because the average age is a little higher in Hot Springs?
Yeah, much higher.
And there could be some disparaging encounters like you were mentioning.
That's what he alluded to. But he'll be here to discuss that with you.
Could he also, you had said that you looked into just covering the projects to be completed in 3 years. Could he have what that rate analysis looks like as well?
I think that was more Bob Wright.
Okay. Well, the reason I bring it up is because Bob, who was with Cruz, was mentioning, that now the interest rates are not following any particular kind of trend. And that may not be the case until the new administration changes in D.C. and we start to see things kind of slow back down or at least get into a trend. So it just worries me if we're trying to schedule out projects to be completed in 5 years now versus not having that knowledge of what those trends look like, because that might result in us coming back to request additional bonds for projects that we could have just waited to secure later.
If that's the pleasure of the board, I think they explained that to us. I'll be glad to do whatever this board wants us to do. But I do know that we're running out of time. We're going to end up paying more in fines to the, to ADEQ if we don't get something moving on this thing.
What I understood that and was explained when those, and what we've done in the past, we've called them and we've, saved money. We would get, we can reissue, but if you don't lock in something, we're gonna cost us to pay out more.
But I will have them prepared to speak to you on both of those, because I'm not the economist, and I'm
But
not
he has
the
a
bond
process.
counsel.
He lays it out. I don't know if he had it in his handout, but he talked about it, and we've done that in the past.
I'll make sure they're here prepared to answer your questions.
If we were to recoup what money the city spent to buy the Majestic land, how many years ago was that? Was that, what, 8 to 10, something like that?
We bought it
At
in,
a-
6 years ago, maybe?
Was that at a cost of about $870,000?
No, it was about 2.1 million, I think.
2.1.
With-
Where did
With
that?
taking everything
With the
down.
cleanup.
Yeah, with the
Yeah.
cleanup.
Yeah, but the initial purchase of the land was like 870, and then another something for cleanup.
875, I think, and then
Was
then we
was
got
that
a
a
donation
transfer
letter.
out of like water or wastewater or solid waste?
Sanitation.
Solid waste.
So if we were to recoup those funds, could that be applied towards ratepayers for
No.
waste?
Has to go
That's
back
a
to
whole-
solid waste.
No.
It's got to go back to solid waste.
Right.
Okay.
They're enterprise funds.
Should be
They're
illegal.
I anticipated your answer, but I was still going to ask. I'm looking for ways to help reduce how
That-
much
yeah.
ratepayers have to pay.
We do
for
that
the
every
bond.
day, Director Webb.
I got you.
That's why the
We do
city
it every day.
That's why the general fund still owes that money. It owes it to
That's
solid
a loan.
waste.
in the budget, too.
It's a loan.
But it's good that you asked. I want you to feel confident that we are doing that as staff.
Yeah.
Director Holliday.
Thanks, it's quick. I just wanted to give a shout out to Monty Ledbetter, who's not here, but he came to speak to the Park Avenue Community Association and answered some good questions on the water project. So just wanted to appreciate him publicly. Also, for anyone on the board who has any questions about how like nonprofit grants and fundraising works, like that's my field. And I'm happy to have those conversations with any one of you guys. And we would be doing it talking about emergent arts, not talking about the resource center, since that's something we vote on. But I'm happy to go through sort of what that arc looks like and how typically nonprofits kind of plan for grant fundraising versus individual donations. Also, moving forward, if you have an opportunity to be on a nonprofit board, that will be the best way for you to learn what's about to happen, is to actually be on a board and having those conversations. So If you have any free time outside of city board and the rest of your lives, join another board, join a nonprofit board and see how the 501c3 world works, because it is a little bit different than municipal government. So that's it.
Okay.
We do?
Bill, you have a comment on another topic?
I do. As you know, solar continues to be, part of this board's goals. We were running up on that September 30th date. We do have some land of our own, a little bit at the airport that we're working on. But I asked Scenic Hill to look for properties that they had already had an approval on or in the works that was inside that September 30th date. They were able to find property. We'd already been working on one, which is about 1.4 megawatt property. It's the Blees property. And then we've got about 2.8 megawatts on some property in Bald Knob. Between all of these areas, we'll be able to double what we currently have in process, which will get us up to almost 10 and a half. But under our contract, we have to buy the property. The properties that we have was 45,000, 65,000 for Blees, and then I think it was 185,000 for the Bald Knob property. So it's about 250,000. I need direction from the board on, is this something we want to amend the budget you passed tonight? Is it something I want to bring from fund balance? My recommendation is I bring you something from fund balance, because as you know, we're going to bring a little over
Yes.
3 million into the surplus board funds in 2024. But I've got to act on this pretty quick to get that. I'm sorry to spring it on you. It just kind of came to me whenever they were looking at that. I got it on the 18th. So it's really good news that we're able to find about another 5 megawatts that we can get in there on that September 30th and take that full grandfathering of those rates. We still will need about 1.8, somewhere in that neighborhood when we're done with this. We're looking at ways that, now that that's shrunk some, we may be able to look at some other property around one of our plants that we can get this behind the meter. Anyway, that I wanted to make the board aware of that. I'll be bringing you something at your next meeting to purchase this property so we can move forward with the rest of the solar project.
Very good. Thank you. Director Garcia?
Thank you, Mayor. If there are no further comments, I'm move to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn, seconded by Director Webb. We do have a public commentary. One individual signed up, so kind of hang close. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned, but as I indicated, we have public comment.
No.